presenter is a very dear friend of mine, Dr. Paul Hood, who is the Director of Planned Giving at the University of Toledo's foundation, Go Rockets. I met Paul at a dinner, and I said to him, hey, I'm a rocket, and he was looking at my plate and waistline and said, no, I think maybe you're a space station. Paul obtained his undergraduate and his law degree from Louisiana State University, and he also has that legal master's of taxation from Georgetown University. So as you can see, he's been to some of the best. He proclaims that he is a recovering tax attorney and practiced estate planning and tax planning for 20 years in Louisiana. He's the father of 2 teenage boys, so that explains his energy. You got to keep up with them. He enjoys reading, and his passion is baseball. So Mudheads and Tigers, right? He also served as the president of the Toledo Area Planned Giving Council in 2014, which again is where Paul and I have been able to work together a couple of times now. So without further ado, I give you a very impressive speaker, my friend Dr. Paul Hood.
Thank you so much. You know, it's a challenge coming after the lunch hour when you're fed as well as we were fed. I mean, what do you mean a build your own strawberry shortcake? That's off the hook. That is flat off the hook. I thought it was fantastic, and I, of course, overindulged, as you might well expect. Here is my quote of the day. I usually have a quote of the day when I make presentations, and this was one that I think of all the time. People who cannot recognize a palpable absurdity are very much in the way of civilization. And in fact, that is true. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that you got from me today was the fact that planned giving is an attitude. And we're going to say that several times during the course of this day. It is flat an attitude. You have to look for these possibilities because they're all around you. And the more open you are to seeing them, the more open you are to using them to your organization's benefit. I'm going to tell you a story. I was handling an estate probably close to 20 years ago now, 25 years ago. And the Salvation Army was one of the legatees in this will. And I get correspondence from the obviously I write the Salvation Army, tell them they're in this person's will and what to expect. And they write back to me, and at the bottom of the letterhead it says, have you remembered the Salvation Army in your will? And I said, what great marketing that is. I mean, having your message get out there on every piece of correspondence that you put out, that's something, I mean, that stuck with me, that resonated with me, even though I had nothing to do. I mean, I was representing foundations and donors, negotiating planned gifts with foundations, but I was not a planned giving director like I am today. And just the possibilities that are there for putting your question, your elevator speeches, and we're going to talk about elevator speeches too, putting these in short, constant reminders is very, very important. You know, people ask me, because most people think when you're a lawyer, you know, you're sort of pigeonholed, especially when you're an estate planning lawyer. But people ask me, what do you do for a living? And I basically tell them I help people make a difference. And that's an odd answer for most of these people, but what it does is it gets them to ask me more questions. And that's the whole goal of this, is to ask more questions. So when I bring this up, you know, people say, well, what do you mean by make a difference? And that's when I tell them I help people create their own legacy. creating a legacy. What a privilege it is for me to be able to help people do that. People who are devoted to University of Toledo and the University of Toledo Foundation and want to help. They are invested in the mission. I help them structure ways that they can give perhaps more than they even thought they could. And by helping people create their legacy, notice what is not, and well, conversation continues, how do you do that? And I said, that's when I start explaining more about what it is. So notice I didn't just come out and say, I'm the director of plan giving at the UT Foundation. Because then people automatically, they've gotten an answer, and there's no reason for them to ask a follow-up question. So what I make sure that I try to give, and particularly with conversations, I try to do it with all conversations, but I'm not always successful, but at least in conversations with donors and prospective donors, I try to carry this same scheme throughout to try to help them see the possibilities of what it is they can do. Because if I go into, well, I help people structure charitable trusts, and you know, one of the things when I first, because I've been in plan giving now for 4 years, and after having practiced and consulted in the estate planning world for about 25. And what's interesting is when I first got into, and I've been a member of the Partnership for Philanthropic Planning, NCPG before that, and now we're changing names again. I've been a member of the organization since 1995, and I've been to national meetings and whatnot. But one of the things I realized when I first got into plan giving as a profession, I didn't know a thing about plan giving marketing. I could go make myself comfortable sitting in all the tax sessions, knowing that I knew everything that speaker was saying before the speaker said it. But when it came to marketing, I was green. I didn't know a thing about how we get our message out there. And that was one of the reasons why one of the first things that came back to me after 25 years was that Salvation Army experience of, have you remembered the Salvation Army in your estate plan? And one of the things that, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about elevator speeches. And of course, the first question is, what is one? And the elevator speech is really something that you have to have pre-rehearsed. When I was in a leadership class, they put us through press training as part of the process. And one of the things you have to learn how to do is to speak in a sound bite for a television reporter, which is no more than 30 to 60-second answers. Doesn't matter what the question is, you have to give a 30 to 60-second succinct answer to the question, or avoid the question, or evade the question. So it usually starts in the form of a question, though. The elevator speech should last, like I said, no more than a minute. Certainly no more than a minute, and it got its name from, okay, so-and-so prospect walks into the elevator with you, and they press a different floor than you, and you've got just that short period of time from the floor the person got on to where they're going to get off to make your case. Make your case for your situation, or get them to ask more questions, or ask for your business card. And again, it has to be, think soundbite for the press. You know, I always laugh because I'll be a glutton for punishment and watch some of these programs on C-SPAN, and I can tell the people who are testifying either for or against a bill, I can tell whether they're press savvy or not by the answers they give. Because the ones who simply are so smart but can't answer, in 30 to 60 seconds, or at least give a summary of what they're going to say in 30 to 60 seconds, I said, well, this person, they're going to lose their audience. Because as soon as they go into the clouds to talk, they've left everyone else behind. And that's exactly what happens. So if it lasts no more than a minute, you're in good shape. In planned giving, we're lucky in that there are probably 8 to 10 elevator speeches that you should have ready at virtually any time. You know, things like, some of the examples are, did you know it can be more advantageous to give stock rather than cash? You'd be surprised at the number of donors that don't know they can do this. And I'm always amazed by even donors who have very, very good advisors. Did you know there's a way to make a meaningful gift that can be changed in the future and won't ever cost you a cent? Again, in the form of a question, and gets people to think. Charitable remainder trust and charitable gift annuities. Did you know there's a way to get income for life in an amount that may exceed your current return and make a gift? And these are very, very powerful elevator speeches that you can use in your practice. I usually refer to myself as a recovering tax lawyer. I do it both for credibility and for some type of jocularity, because people tend to laugh when you say that. It's true though, you know, I drafted, I don't know, in my career I probably wrote 2,500 to 3,000 wills. And, you know, I'm glad I'm not, well, as much as I loved doing that, I'm glad that I'm not wrestling with some of the issues that my cohorts are wrestling with today in practice. Because it's changed a lot over the last, since I got out of practice in 2005. So, the thing that people often don't understand is people categorize themselves either as wealthy or I'm not wealthy. And if they say they're not wealthy, then philanthropy is a term that tends to be over their heads. Like, I can't be a philanthropist because I'm not wealthy. And the sad fact is that everyone can be a philanthropist. Everybody out there can be a philanthropist, and it's absolutely the right way to go. Every gift makes a difference. And I tell people this, you know, say, who do you work for at the university? I work for the students at the University of Toledo. I try to make a difference to the life of a student every day by my actions. That's what drives me to go to work every day. I love my job, and I love the students, and I love the alums and friends of the University of Toledo, because they're very, very devoted. All you need to be a philanthropist is an affinity to an organization and a desire to do good. And once you unlock that possibility for people, the sky's the limit. You know, as Chris was talking about, you know, this morning with his secretary example at the university, who wanted to leave her $1.5 million estate to buy office supplies. And, you know, what a great story. What a fantastic celebration. And he's right. We need to celebrate these things because, and these people, one of the reasons why we like to know about planned gifts even before they're realized, and it's not just to steward the people, but it's to celebrate and to have them celebrate even if they don't want any notoriety for their gift, if they want to remain anonymous. It's still important, A, to thank them, and B, to have them celebrate the fact that they have done something remarkable. you can make much more headway with a donor by talking to the donor about the donor's passions, what it is they want their legacy to be. You know, in my questionnaire, in my information questionnaire as a practicing lawyer, and Chris had something very similar, but this is one that I used. If you could solve any problem in the world with a donation of time, talent, or treasure, what problem would you solve? And that's a whole different way of looking at charitable giving and say, do you have any charitable intent? Which a lot of questionnaires ask. Do you have any charitable intent? Well, usually people say, I don't know, or yeah, but maybe not much. But if you get them talking about what it is that excites them, if it excites them, then they're more likely to do something about it. One of the things that research, we referenced Dr. Russell James earlier today, you know, he's done some groundbreaking research. Some of his research actually differs from what my practice experience was, which was people past the age of about 75 rarely make significant voluntary changes to their estate plan. They often are unduly influenced by others to make involuntary changes, and those become the question of litigation and whatnot. But the research tends to be, or seems to be, going in the direction of people making more significant changes to their estate plan past age 80, 85. So that's something to keep in mind. But one of the things that people want, and the research bears this out, and there's a lot of, I do a lot of writing about the psychological aspects of estate planning. And in psychology, there are a number of theories that back up the fact that people are striving, yearning, hungering for some type of symbolic immortality. And one of the great ways that we can help them is we can actually help them achieve that. And that's something that people want. We're going to talk a little bit about what planned giving or legacy giving is. The gifts that are deferred, you know, we know what those are: bequests, charitable remainder trust, charitable gift annuities, split interest gifts. I tend to deal with IRA transfers too. Those get lopped off into my particular category of work. One of the things that I try to tell our gift officers this all the time, is don't get bogged down in the details of planned giving. I tell this to small organizations too, because I work with a number of smaller organizations in the Toledo area, and some people won't bring up planned giving because they feel they're not conversant in it. And I said, that's a big mistake, because about 80% of all planned gifts are bequests. And that's one of the simplest asks there is simply to say, hey, would you consider a gift that you could change tomorrow and won't cost you a cent today? I mean, that's as easy. I mean, you're not asking someone to pull out a checkbook or pull out their stock portfolio and make a gift. Talk to them about what their needs and desires are. Try to get them on their passions. If you can find that passion, and it may not be for your organization, but if you can find that passion for them, you will have strengthened your relationship with them, even if they don't give to your organization. They will recognize you as having enlightened them, and that's a good thing. Let's see, Steve has that now we go. All right. If you're qualifying someone and you realize that a major gift is really not within their reach at the moment, you can gently probe further, and if you find desire, and if you find capacity even in the future, these are the people who are your legacy gift candidates. The people that I market to, and I'll just say the people that I market to the most are our most loyal donors. The donors, and I define that as people who have made gifts to the organization in 20 or more years, not necessarily consecutive years. And that narrows my focus because the research tells us that those people are more likely to make a gift, a planned gift to your organization. The amount of the gift that they make annually is irrelevant. It's the people who make those small the people who fly under the radar screen of major gift officers. Because they're the slow plodding turtle. They give you $50 a year, but they do it for 35 years, and all of a sudden at their death, they've left you $75,000, and everyone is surprised. But the research should tell us that we shouldn't be surprised at that. We had one where we thought we were going to end up getting a $100,000 bequest. The lady outlived her husband and her 2 children, dying at the ripe old age of 104, and she left the University of Toledo $2 million. She just simply ran out of people to give money to. Her living relatives were all dead before she was. And it was an amazing gift that we got almost immediately after the lady passed away. It was really an amazing deal. One of the things that I know is clients and donors don't like to necessarily tell us when they've named us in their estate plans. Number one, they may not want the notoriety, or B, if they want to be thanked, they'll do that, but they don't want every other organization in town all of a sudden to get their name and start coming into them. So we know that for every bequest we know about, we're going to get 2 to 3 that we didn't know a thing about. But we can increase our likelihood of getting those bequests by marketing in advance to our most loyal donors. By stewarding these people in advance, if you will, you have decreased the likelihood of disappearance. Because remember, they can write you into their estate plan, they can take you out of their estate plan. And people do that fairly, at least more regularly now than I think that they have. The planned or legacy gift is a capstone gift, but one of the things that development officers often make the mistake of is they think that this is the last gift. The research is telling us that people who make planned gifts actually increase their annual support to the organization. Why? Because they're committed long-term to the organization. But the thing about planned giving is it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And you can't rush a planned, I mean, I'm working with one right now, it's an 8-figure bequest gift, and this one's going to close when this donor is ready, and not a second before that. And I've done everything I can do to help the donor. I've drafted part of their estate plan, helping their lawyers and whatnot. But it's going to close when this donor is ready. And you can't push people too much. The people who are your prospects are those who do fly under the radar screen. As I've said, the amount of giving is irrelevant. The Pay attention to those loyal donors. Reach out to those loyal donors. You may have 200, 500, 1,500 of these people who fit this profile, whether it's giving in 10 years or more, or 20 years or more, or if your organization's larger, 25 or 30 years or more. Reach out to those people. And it's not very expensive to do that. You know, a letter is a wonderful thing to do. As I pointed out earlier, the research is clear that people increase their annual support. The best candidates, and this is some of the research of Dr. Russell James, persons between ages 40 and 60 have a bachelor's degree, annual incomes, and who are motivated by a desire to do good. Some of the best indicators of bequests, obviously single and childless. And between ages 40 and 60. You know, it's getting younger for people to market planned giving to other people. The income gifts you may want to market now, but to your older segment. But to a younger segment, you may want to get in their estate plan as early as you can. I'm going to, let's see here if I can skip forward. Some of the requests, some of the challenges. You know, heirs, I will mention this. Sometimes heirs do get a little aggravated when they find out that you're in their estate plan and they're not in it for as much as they thought. We've had situations where heirs have diverted money illegally. It's just a fact of life. Mark Twain said you never really know someone until you share an inheritance with them. And that is absolutely true, and I can attest to that after all my years in this business and having been an heir myself. The bequests, you need to track these things. Your accounting people are going to have you book them for $1, and that's okay. You can keep up with your development numbers. If someone tells you, yeah, I'm giving you a $100,000 bequest, you may log that somewhere else in your numbers and keep track of that, present value it, do whatever you wish to do with it. But you need to keep up with that and steward these people. Because, again, they can take you in and they can write you right out of the estate plan. It is an easy ask, as I've said before. The ask is simply, it doesn't impact their current lifestyle, can be changed in the future, won't cost them a dime. This is where this thought, this attitude has to be on all your papers, your receipts, your gift receipts, your buck slips, your letterhead, your email signature blocks. These are all avenues for communication to your prospective donors. And it needs to be pushed, that attitude needs to come from the top of the organization and needs to be pushed all the way down. Planned giving cannot be this silo out on the corner. Well, that's, you know, complicated gifts and we just want money in the door today. Well, it doesn't work like that. I mean, think about a great organization like the Smithsonian Institution. Does anybody know the story of the Smithsonian Institution? The Smithsonian Institution was founded because a gentleman by the name of Smithson over in England, left a bequest of his estate to his nephew. But if his nephew died intestate and without descendants, predeceased him, intestate and without descendants, he was leaving the money to the new country to form a museum. His nephew died intestate and without descendants. And therefore, Smithson, who never set foot in the United States, his contingent bequest became the Smithsonian Institution. Very, very powerful story about the way that even contingent legacies matter. These are very important to keep in mind. Life insurance, we'll talk just quickly about that. Life insurance policies are assets and they need to be managed. You can't just put them in a drawer and leave them alone. They don't do well like that, particularly in today's life insurance world. Donors can get an income tax deduction if they donate a policy or donate the premiums to you to pay the policy, but it requires consistent and active asset management. Because again, today the policies have gotten so complicated that you just can't do anything about it. Many of these policies lapse before the person dies, and they're set up to do that. They're built into the insurance company's model. IRAs and retirement plan benefits, these are great, and they make good tax sense because the charities are tax exempt, won't have to pay the income tax that comes within the IRA or the retirement plan. We know about the IRA rollover, which was finally made permanent this past year. You should market to your donors who are over age 70.5 and do it early enough in the year so that and maybe even a couple of times during the year, so that when they take out their minimum required distribution from their IRAs, they will actually think about diverting some of that money to you. These are people who, the Congress means what it says, and there's a 50% penalty for failure to take out the minimum required distribution. 50%. So people want to get that right. And the IRA charitable rollover actually accomplishes satisfying that minimum required distribution and gets the donor out of the income tax, which is a great thing. Charitable gift annuities, real quickly. Small organizations should avoid them. These are promises to pay backed by all the assets of the organization. The charitable gift annuity can be a good vehicle in the right situation, but it can also lead to an underwater gift annuity because you have to make the payments for life of the annuitant or the annuitants. Annuities are bets to live. Life insurance are bets to die. We have, and I'm sure you may have, charitable gift annuities where the donor has received far more back than they ever put in. If my memory's correct, the life expectancy of a charitable gift annuitant is somewhere around 90. And the average age is about 79. So they tend to outlive the mortality tables. That's what I tell people when they do charitable gift annuities. This is your ticket to prosperity, at least for a longer period of time than you may have had before you entered into that. The 25,000 tends to be the minimum for most. I'm not a big proponent of the gift annuity. I mean, I would prefer to see people do, if it helps the donor with their cash flow, then that's okay. If it's an accommodation for a future gift, that's good too. But I don't spend a lot of time marketing for charitable gift annuities. Charitable remainder trusts. These are for the more complex donors. We're not going to spend any time on that. One thing I will say is the question often comes up, can the organization serve as trustee? And I tend to tell people that's not a good idea. It's not your core business, and unless you're willing to devote the resources necessary to be a true trustee, it is far better to have someone else serve as the trustee. More on charitable remainder trusts. Some of the benefits: you can diversify an investment. You do get the income tax deduction, which when they raise income tax makes the deduction worth more. You can defer your capital gains tax, and I always give people the word defer, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to beat the capital gains tax. It just means it comes out a little at a time, so that I don't want people saying that I took too much. Remember, plan giving is an attitude 24/7. Let's say that you had a budget of $5,000 and say, what could I do for $5,000? And here, one of the things you're going to want to do is review all your letterhead and written communications and electronic communications, having everybody give some type of simple plan giving message. Simple as the Salvation Army. Have you remembered the Salvation Army in your estate plan? Very, very simple. The cost there is really nothing. And you can have people link back for more information to your plan giving website. Do you need a plan giving website? Probably not. That's where we spend most of the money in this example. But you don't necessarily even need one, as long as you know who your most loyal donors are and you market to them first. Some type of donor-centric plan-giving seminar. You know, it's helpful to give information, and if you're looked to for information from others, it's a very, very good thing to consider doing these. Integrate your email campaign with links back to your, one of the things that we're always concerned about now is, are we overloading our donors with messages? And so what you want to do is you want to consider the donor, and you want to particularly consider your bounce rates and all your email statistics. But integrate your email campaigns with links back to your plan giving website. Again, very, very inexpensive to send emails. It's just a matter of, do you want to send emails? Or how many do you want to send? Your events, your board meetings, your membership meetings have some type of plan giving message. Again, it doesn't cost anything to add that. What a powerful way to keep this at the fore of everyone's minds is that you're in the bequest business. And this is something that you're going to want to encourage. Your board and membership meetings, the same thing. Some type of, and telling donor stories. Interviewing the donors and having them tell their stories. I get is 2 gifts when a donor does that. First is the gift they made, but second is the gift of an example to others. What a fantastic thing. Every time I get so excited about writing donor stories, and I spend a not insignificant amount of my time writing stories about donors. I mean, when I say not insignificant, probably, I don't know, in the last year, 5–10% of my time has been spent writing donor stories. But those are powerful. They peer pressure, peer knowledge, peer awareness. So, well, I was thinking about doing that, and I saw Pete did that in his estate plan. And you know what? If Pete can do it, I can do it. So, and in fact, I can do more than Pete. And that's how it tends to work. Social media is becoming more important. I'm almost 56 years old, and I wouldn't consider myself as social media savvy. I'm on Facebook like everyone else my age. But as far as Snapchat and the rest of it, Pinterest, you know, I haven't really stuck my foot into those waters. But it's important with your email campaign, you know, pushing word out, getting people to like your pages. Those are important. The interactive website, again, I would say if anything was optional here, it would be this. I like to use the website, though, as my hub of information. And by hub of information, I don't mean putting so much information in there that the donor gets lost. When we put our Plan Giving website together, I had two rules. The first rule was if I can't get there in 2 clicks, it's not worth going. And second, I want to contact us on every single page. Every single page. Because I don't want someone to get frustrated and leave the site without having their question answered. Just because, and look, you know, there's a lot of vendors out there that sell Plan Giving websites. And some of them have more information on it than the donor could ever get to. And it's buried down 8, 10 clicks, but they can get to it. But people won't take the time to do that. So if there's anything in here that's optional, this one is it, but that's about what it would cost. Again, email signature blocks. You know, again, I mean, on my email signature block, ask me how to include UT in your estate plan. Just a very, very simple statement. And I mean, this type of thing is important, and people think about this when they're reading your communication. Business cards, again, very, very cheap to have the mission and an elevator pitch on your business card itself. Very inexpensive. This one is, if you did nothing else of what I told you, do this one. Send a personalized letter to your top, and you can roll them out. Let's say you had 1,000 of them. You say, well, I don't want to send 1,000 letters. I'll send 200 at a time. Get your most loyal donors. You know, again, we're talking about minimal cost here, but a bequest message, a bequest that tells a donor story and makes an ask. Donor story and makes an ask. Yes?
Are you saying this in addition to like an annual appeal?
Yes. Yeah, this is something different than your annual appeal. I'm talking about a targeted bequest letter. And you can do targeted letters on IRAs to your people who fit that age category. Yes?
When you say make an ask for a request, is that that's just a ask included in your will?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not an amount.
No. We just say, will you consider making provisions in your estate plan for our organization? And then extol the virtues of the bequest as a technique, because it doesn't cost anything today and can be changed in the future. So if you do nothing else, do this on the shoestring budget. Yes?
Would you include a response piece in that where they can check, yes, I have, or I need more information?
Yes, yeah, response pieces are important. They don't have to go in every communication, but they certainly should go, I mean, again, on your receipts. You know, let us know if you've provided for us in your estate plan, or if you want more information on how to provide for us in your estate plan. These are all very important things. Personally thank more donors and remind them of their option to make a legacy, to leave a legacy. This costs some time, but it's worth it. Because if you can talk to somebody, if you can spend some time talking to somebody about their passions, the possibilities are far higher that you're going to get a gift from them because you've unlocked something in them. Very, very important aspect here. If you have a phone-a-thon outreach, have a plan have some questions built into your script, and where they can ask one question, and if the answer is a certain answer, then they can ask them 2 or 3 more questions about their planned gift intentions. Again, you're already spending the money on your phone-a-thon. Why not add some bang for the buck and leverage it with some questions about planned gifts? Very, very good thing. What I wanted to do with the balance at the time was basically engage in a conversation about what it is you're doing that may have even more appeal to your donors. I mean, give me some success stories that are going on out there. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we're doing. What are you doing? Anyway. Yes.
Just recently, I'm a second visit, and relatively new at an organization, so I didn't get to know you visits. My second round, in terms of some of the visits, I've done a giving history, a report, and just as a thank you, so that they were surprised at the and I'm surprised how excited people are to see that. So it's a thank you, just like, you know, after our conversation, I went back and I do it before I go, but just for the fun of it, I can go back and I just want to share this with you. I'm inspired by this and the questions. I'm curious as to what inspired you to give us again in 1989. So it opens the door for more conversation.
It does. It's amazing. It's amazing. You cannot thank a donor too often. Simply can't be done. You know, I know, I'm sure in my average email to a donor, I thanked it at least twice, if not 3 times in the same email, for various things, because our donors are our lifeblood. And from my standpoint, the more you can interact with the donor and talk to the donor about the donor's passion, then the better off you're going to be when it comes time for that donor to make a change to their estate plan that includes you, your organization. So, yeah, donor stories, thank you visits, these are all excellent ideas that, that again don't have to cost much. You know, I mean, in my organization, I mean, I'll admit I have a budget bigger than $5,000 for planned giving. But if I only had $5,000, I just laid out to you how I would spend it. Yes.
The other thing that I've had great response in, because I serve seniors, were personal thank yous, and I realize I take a lot of time doing them, but I really make it hard when I'm sharing about it. And it's always, you know, an opening statement, you made my day, or inspired me. And I've had so many compliments on it, they're so excited to see something like that, personal,
Handwritten notes are invaluable because people know that you took the time to actually expend some energy to write them a note, and that's a big deal. I got one of the nicest, we just did an event in Toledo called Project 419, you may have heard something about it. We brought in 2 national speakers, and we had the event at the Peristyle in the Museum of Art in Toledo, which which if you've never been there, you should go there. It's one of the top museums in the United States. And it's a phenomenal museum built by a planned gift. A planned gift, and actually one of the reasons why the Toledo Museum of Art is one of the finest museums in the country is because the endowment that supports them, the original Libby endowment, requires 50% of the earnings be used to acquire new pieces of art, which is a very healthy, allows the Toledo Museum of Art to have the funds to bid on nice pieces to add to the collection. So what a forward-thinking thing by Mr. Libby, who founded only 4 Fortune 500 companies. Only 4. Yes. Well, obviously, if it was me, I'd probably spend my time and money having a donor testimonial. We just did, I mean, we have plain giving brochures. People don't always read those things. But if they see somebody that they know, or somebody that they admire, or somebody that they didn't know or admire, but sees what great things they're doing, and not only that, we tend to involve our students who are benefited by these gifts, telling them not only thank you, but all the great things, because our students are doing phenomenal things. Phenomenal things. Things I couldn't even have imagined when I was in college. And they're really out there doing some things, and the donors love to hear those stories. So if it was me, I'd probably look at a piece that would tell a story of just and living donor stories are even better than deceased donor stories. I mean, they really are, because someone who's alive, you can get quotes from them. You know, when you're writing a story about a deceased donor, and I've written those too, you know, you're getting quotes about them from other people. But a living donor, you got a picture of them, and this is what they're doing, and this is why they're doing it. Very, very powerful. Very powerful. Yes?
Question. Regarding charitable gift annuity,
Mhm.
I know you're not real big on them, but for a small shop, if they were to arrange with another community foundation or something to handle them, is that?
Yes. That if you're going to do that, the local community foundation is a powerful way to do that. Yes. I just fear. I'm fearful for the smaller organization that takes in a large gift annuity, that all of a sudden things go south, and then they're on the hook for this annuity, and they don't have enough in their risk pool to offset those losses. So that's why I'm always a bit leery for some of the smaller organizations. We have a number of charitable gift annuities. I wouldn't say we have a material number of gift annuities, because that would cause me to stay awake at night. Because if it was a material number, then you have to, because again, we do have some annuities where we've paid out, in some cases, twice the money that the donor actually gave, because they've outlived the mortality payments. And that's the risk you take. Annuities are bets to live. Life insurance is a bet to die. Very simple. Yes?
Do you have examples, like on your website, the UT's website, about your donor stories?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we tell donor stories on our Plan Giving website. Absolutely. Yeah, and those stories, people read those stories. I mean, I know that's one of our most click-through pages, is our page on our donor stories. Very, very important. again, to tell those stories. And again, if you can get a living donor to tell you that story, that's a powerful second gift, y'all. Very powerful second gift. And that can be leveraged to give more gifts from other people that you're not even in touch with yet, who are impacted by that person's story. Very important. Yes, ma'am.
I know with planned gifts, you have to keep the donors that you have.
Yes.